That CPD show. My name is Chris and I'll be your host for today. And today I'm joined on the podcast by Pastor Lee Brown. Lee is the Audacious Chester Location Pastor along with his wife, Lezandri. Lee has just finished C24 with Ministers in Training. And as part of his work with Audacious, the Chester campus have just submitted planning application for a £1.8 million building. Lee, it's great to have you on the pod. Welcome.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having me. Absolute pleasure and honor to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to have you on the pod, and but very excited to hear about the building. Do you want to just give us a little insight into the building? It sounds very exciting.
So it definitely caught us by surprise. About 12 months ago, we were coming into church Sunday morning as normal, and the warehouse directly across the road from us had a for sale sign on it. Now, for context, the warehouse is about 3 to 4 times the size of the leased building we currently meet in. So a bunch of our church congregation came to the doors as they were coming into church. You know, you're saying your hellos, how are you, all that kind of stuff. And they said, have you seen the building across the road's for sale? And I looked at it and I thought, you know what, that looks interesting. I'll send a couple of emails. And before we knew it, we were walking through the building, having site visits, and it is just the perfect building for us to expand and grow the congregation, and it's right across the road. So the building is owned by a company called the Sanctuary Group, and we currently meet on Sovereign Way. So we're going to walk across Sovereign Way and in Jesus' name into the sanctuary. So that's a really cool language piece. Currently at planning permission. The slowest stage probably on the journey is now where we're just getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted with the local council, the change of use, etc. And the company that are selling it, they're actually going to take over our lease from the council. So we're effectively doing a building swap. So talk about God's perfect timing. So as of right now, we're currently in the middle ground, just waiting, biding our time, doing what we can do, need to do as we anticipate planning getting approved in Jesus' name.
Brilliant. I mean, that's really, really exciting. And I mean, what amazing circumstances, you know, walking into church, see the sign, just brilliant. That's really great to hear. So yeah, prayers, I think will be appreciated from everyone listening to this. Do pray for Lee and for the congregation there. Really exciting. That's really good. Okay, so we're here to talk about development today. But before we talk about development, we're not just going to talk about development. Before we do that, we're going to talk about dessert. So Lee, tell me, what is your favorite dessert?
No, I'm a big chocolate fan, Chris. Anything with chocolate on it, I'll eat it. And it's a sunny day today in Chester. So if you came by my house, knocked on my door, and delivered me a nice cold white chocolate magnum ice cream, I would be your best friend on the planet. I love it. It's versatile as a dessert, isn't it? You can have it out and about. You don't need to go to a nice restaurant. And it just ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? It's got the chocolate, white chocolate especially, good ice cream in the middle, and £5 for an ice cream, a little bit pricey, but it really delivers every time, I think.
Well, yes, and look, I think this is the first time, I don't know now, ice cream has come up, but this is the first time where an ice cream on a stick has come up. So this is quite big. This is a momentous moment.
Huge moment.
We need to dig into the Magnum, because you've gone white chocolate, and that's an interesting one. So for many people, white chocolate tends to be, some people find it too sweet, but for you, obviously, that seems to be the right one. So you would go for that over a milk chocolate, almonds. I mean, I go for almond for some reason. I don't know why.
Good choice. Yeah, great choice. Tastes great. The magnums that have the caramel in the middle as well are just brilliant.
Oh,
Can't remember
yes.
what they're called. But I don't know what it is about white chocolate. It just hits a little bit different, doesn't it? I think you just so used to milk chocolate all the time. I mean, you just get the white chocolate at the right time. It just tastes amazing. It's chocolate that myself and my mother-in-law share in common. We bonded when we first met over white chocolate. So anytime we're together, that just seems to be something that brings us together, which is hilarious.
No, that is very good. There's a new one that I've had a few times, and it's white chocolate with a kind of like passion fruit inner.
Ooh.
And it's really good. I think it's got some kind of coconut. I like coconut flavored ice cream. I don't think it's coconut flavored ice cream, but it's got some kind of coconutty, passion fruity thing, but with the white chocolate, and then with the Magnum.
Quite niche.
It is quite. I mean, and you know,
divides opinion, I imagine.
I'm sure it does, but it works in the Bright household, and so it's a good dessert. But I think that's a great idea. A white chocolate magnum. It's simple. It's like you said, versatile. You can have it in many different places. You can, yeah. It always does. It always hits the spot. I think that's what we want to say with that. So yes,
It should never let me down. Never let me down.
no, it's true. Actually, it's true. I've never been disappointed by a white chocolate magnum. I've never thought, nah, not that good. Whereas if you go for sometimes a milk chocolate one, that it seems a little bit. It can be. It's great as well, though, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's a great ice cream. Okay, brilliant. White chocolate magnum. That's excellent. Let's move on to development. Then you got 3 resources with you today. So we're going to dive into your first one. What's the first resource you brought with you?
First resource is a book I've read called Excellence Wins by, if I pronounce it right, Horst Schulze. The co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group tried to be a little bit different in the resources I'm bringing today.
Great. And now the good news is I've read this book as well. So I'm looking forward to having a little conversation around it. For those who haven't read it or haven't heard of Horst Schulze, or however you pronounce his surname, tell me about the book. What's the précis? What's the idea around it?
Yeah, well, the blurb in the book is basically a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. So what I love about this book is when you think of a Ritz-Carlton hotel, whether you've been or not, you've got an image that comes to mind. You think wow factor, you think excellence. And the whole book is Horst talking about how excellence delivers on lots of different levels. And he draws these analogies and these pictures about how when you drive across America, you can stop into any motel you want. Motels really you stay in for a night, don't you? They're the pit stop along the way. You get in, you get out, you go. But with a Ritz-Carlton hotel, it creates an experience where you never want to leave. And so even though he doesn't draw any links directly to church and to our context, there's so much gold within this book that helps me visualize, well, what could it look like to have a church and a church experience where people never want to leave? And his whole mantra is about the staff being ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. He's got, I think, 110 luxury hotels across 30 different countries in the world. So these guys really know what they're doing when it comes to excellence. I think there's just tons of weight within this book that can help us create an environment and experience that just draws people from across our cities and across our country to the house of God.
I really liked that bit in the book where he talks about ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. It'd be good to unpack that a little bit for the listeners, because I think it speaks to, I think we've heard of that phrase, the customer's always right, but this is something that's slightly different, isn't it? It's talking to something that's providing value on both sides. Talk to me a little bit about that concept.
Yeah, I love how he views his employees. They're not just an employee at the end of the day, and he gives them jobs to do and get done. It's so far removed from that. He actually delegates permission and authority to his staff. So I love one of the stories he shares where a customer staying at the hotel comes to a staff member with a problem. And instead of that staff member saying, well, hold on a sec, I'll talk to my manager, who will then go and talk to somebody else who might be able to sort out your problem for you. They actually give each and every employee at the hotel a budget to deal with the problems and leave the customers satisfied at the end of the day, giving them full permission and discretion to be the problem solvers. So I don't know what it's like for anybody else who's listening in church, but a lot of the time, person A has a problem, goes to team member just brings it straight to you. And you know full well they, in their ability, capacity, leadership gift, could sort it out, come up with a solution, fix the problem, but they just jump straight up to you and try and get you to deal with the problem. Whereas I love this empowering environment that's created within the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group, where the ladies and gentlemen who are their staff just are completely trusted, have the respect, have the authority, and the resource to add to the environment and create an incredible culture within the hotel.
How have you started to put some of this into practice? How does that work when you put it into a church environment? Obviously, we can think about it in terms of a hotel environment, but when we're now having to translate that into the church environment, what's some things that you've tried doing? Maybe you had a go at implementing some things and trying some things. How has it worked out for you trying to implement it?
Yeah, great. Well, it's definitely not easy. Let's start out by saying that. I think the bottom line is that vision leaks. So one of the things language pieces we started to use in the life of church was we call the one percenters. I'm not sure we talked about this specifically in the book, but it's quite a common theme, is together as a leadership team and a volunteer base, let's work together on eliminating the one percenters in the life of church. So that's everything from there's rubbish on the floor, let's pick it up. There's some mess from youth on the Friday night, let's blame the youth ministry, it's Friday. There's some light bulbs that need fixing. And just trying to empower people to say, this is my church and I'm an owner of the church, and so I'll take responsibility. But then also we've got to give them the budget, we've got to give people the resource, and I've got to empower the team beneath me, so the department leaders, to be those agents of change that then they'll empower the general volunteer base to catch the vision, implement some culture, and problem solving amongst themselves. So a lot of the time people will come to me and they'll say, hey, what should we do about X, Y, and Z? And I'll just bounce it straight back to them and say, hey, what do you think we should do? 9 times out of 10, they've got a great idea. And so just creating that kind of culture of, why don't you just live in permission? And hey, if it's wrong, we don't get it right, then we'll work it out after the fact. Because I think there's very few things that people could do that could totally derail the church in that sense, when they're operating from good intentions and just thinking about the vision and the heart behind the house. 9 times out of 10, they're going to do something brilliant and be a great reflection on who we are as Christians, people of God, and as the local church. So some of it's teaching, other times it's just catching, and people will watch me on a Sunday morning pick up stuff, fix things just in my walk around before church, and send hello to everybody on team, making sure everybody feels valued and loved. And so that just replicates a culture in the life of the church where when the first time guests come straight through the door on Sunday, we make a big deal out of them, we connect them, and right through, which is a lot harder, to the guests who come week 2, 3, 4, 5, who don't necessarily have that nice orange bag that we give out on week 1 that says, hey, I'm a first-time guest, talk to me. That is a really important part of our culture, that all of the team and all the individuals in church are constantly thinking, okay, who's on their own? Who do I need to connect with? Who have I not met yet? So we're just trying to create this environment of, this is my church. Together we build the church. It's not just the pastor or the leadership team, but it's all of us all the time.
It's certainly something that that Horst Schulze does with the Ritz-Carlton group, is that he thinks about the customer from, I think it was from 12 feet from meeting the first person, because that's the kind of the environment where that's when first connection happens. It happens way before. I think it might be even before, further than 12 feet before, but they're thinking about that very first connection point all the way through, and thinking of the what's that journey that for them it's a customer journey. But if you think about it for in the church world, it's the guest journey. That's someone that when they are first interacting with the church, now that could go from social media through to the website, through to approaching the church, the car park, then through to the the foyer, and then to the auditorium, then through to and so it helps think through all of those different steps and those handoffs that happen at every single point. I think he does that really well in this book, and helps you think through how we bringing excellence in every single environment. And like you said, it's bringing that empowerment, that it can't just be you making the decisions on everything. How can we empower more people? And he does that. I think he does that really well with values, and like you said, like the mission, and he, if I remember rightly, this is my memory serving me well here. He gets at every beginning of every shift, they talk about something to do with the values, and so it's always talked about, it's always taught. Talk to me about that, those kind of values. How does that work out for you, and how does it help people make great decisions?
Wow, great question. You've got an amazing memory that you can literally just remember some of the stuff that he said in the book, and I've just brought it up. Yeah, similar to what he does with his team. Sunday mornings, obviously game day for us. Example of that, what we do is we're constantly having ramp up meetings for the Sunday. So we make some jokes in church that we've got a prayer meeting before the prayer meeting before the prayer meeting. So right from the get-go, people show up, and we've got production run and we pray with that team. Then we've got pre-service praise, we pray with that team. Then we're praying again and people come through the doors and we're praying at the start of Sunday. So we're constantly trying to create these little micro teams on a Sunday in groups of people where we can talk about game day, we can, talk about who we are, what we're about, and constantly just reiterate the why behind the what. It's really easy on a Sunday to show up and roll out of bed and just come to church and treat it as ordinary. But it's such a huge occasion. We get 52 Sundays in the year. It's Super Bowl Sunday every single week. There's an opportunity for people to cross over from death to life. So we're constantly in our language trying to help people see the why behind the what and communicating our values wherever we can. An example of that is probably last week, actually. We had a partners night, and it's where we gather key teams in the life of church. So if you're in a small group or you're on a team or you give, you just have to do one of those three things. So the bar is quite low. You're invited to a partners night. And it's really where we're getting the engine room behind church. People are saying, this is my home together. And the other night we celebrated, we've got a value that is seriously fun in the life of church. We took everybody, we paid for it. We went bowling, laser tag, had pizza, loads of fried food, karaoke, table tennis, all the above. There's about 100 of us there, just celebrating, zero agenda, but just as a way of communicating to the team. We didn't say anything, but they're seeing us live out the value of seriously fun. And the idea is that then they'll carry that through their life, their small groups, their teams, everything that they do and who they are.
Fantastic. Okay, that's Excellence Wins by Horst Schulze. Let's move on to resource number 2. What's the second one you got?
Second resource is a podcast, which I love, and it's called The Ramsey Show. The Ramsey Show.
We're in sync because I really enjoy The Ramsey Show. Now, it's not to do with Gordon Ramsay, different Ramsey. This is Dave Ramsey. So tell me, for those people who don't know who Dave Ramsey is, tell me who Dave Ramsey is and what he's all about.
Well, that's a great question. Who knows? I'm kidding. Dave Ramsey is a Christian leader based in the United States of America. He also runs another podcast called Entre Leadership, speaking specifically in the small business owners. But currently, the guy's got $100 million plus net worth, but he was bankrupt at 28 years old. He's a Christian, he follows the Bible. And the podcast in itself is lots of people calling in with their money problems. He gives advice, family dramas. They give advice, him and the personalities that he brings on board, and creates an incredible show.
Now, before we started the podcast, I said that I really like Dave Ramsey's 12 baby steps, and I got that confused with AA's 12 steps. And but he's actually 7. He has 7 baby steps. Now, I'm not going to give you a pop quiz, but talk to me about what he's trying to achieve with these baby steps. He talks about baby steps a lot and helping people achieve financial freedom. So talk me through some of that and what he's trying to get towards.
Yeah, for sure. So less so in America. This is why it's really helpful for us in the UK, is we're notoriously bad at talking about money, finances, income, wealth here in the UK. In fact, we dodge the question quite a lot, which is why when you'll talk about giving or tithes and offerings on a Sunday, it feels like all the air is sucked out of the room because people just don't like talking about money. But Dave's created this podcast and this show to help people primarily get out of debt, build wealth, and give and live generously. So it's not just all about, hey, yourself focusing on building your own empire, but about building the kingdom and how at the end of getting out of your debts, building wealth and thinking about the next generation, you can live and give generously. So some of the baby steps, the first one's build up an emergency fund of £1,000. The second is getting out of debt, such as your car loans, your credit cards. The third is a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. The fourth is investing 15% of your income for retirement. I can keep going if you want me to. The fifth,
you can keep going. You can keep going.
Is, I don't know if this is applicable to us. This is where you've got to read behind the Americanisms. Is saving for the kids' college fund. 6 is paying off the house early, and 7 is live and give generously. So he always has a Bible verse at the end of the podcast, talks about tithing. And it's basically all anchored in this verse of Proverbs 22, verse 7, is that the borrower is slave to the lender. So very contentious, Dave Ramsey. You can look him up on TikTok, Instagram, and look in the comment section. And there are lots of people that disagree, lots of people that agree. So wherever you find yourself, agreeing or disagreeing, it's just helpful to open up your mind to a different way of thinking and having healthy conversations about money and about finance.
Yeah, I started watching some of his stuff. It was a few months ago, and I found it really helpful because there is a lot of stuff, especially in the social media sphere of leverage this and try and buy more, build a property empire and all these kind of things. And you think, is that you try and work it out, and I'm not skilled in that kind of area. But when you have really good biblically based wisdom, then it's really, really helpful. And it does take a bit of translation. There's some good stuff on YouTube where the people will translate it into the UK context.
Oh, brilliant.
Which is really actually helpful. And so things like they have differences in terms of how they would see student loans. So that's a slight difference. And again, kids' college is a slightly different one as well. But the principles are still there. Then nothing really changes in terms of the principles. And I've been trying to do it with my family as well. Trying to live in a way where you're starting to you're saving for I'm saving for the kids and all those kind of things. And it doesn't make me anything special. It just means that I'm trying to do the best I can, build a budget, all those kind of things, and certainly not easy at all. But it's really, really helpful. How has it helped you in terms of how you talk to your congregation? Because obviously, the offering slot is obviously a very famous part of any church service. Sometimes can feel a bit awkward to do because we're British. We don't like asking people for money. But has this helped you think about that differently?
Yeah, I think the podcast definitely gives you a lot more confidence in how you talk about money and the reason behind it. We're not just communicating money to get some stuff, because really God can get it to us in lots of different ways. We're trying to get something in the people. So when I'm doing an offering on a Sunday morning, I'm not actually trying to get something from them. I'm trying to get something to them, trying to get breakthrough in their heart, transformation in their mind. And so for me, my personal giving journey of learning to tithe properly, regularly, some 10 years ago, to vision offerings, to over and above, to increasing the tithing budget every year. Some years it's 0.5% when things aren't great. Other years we can up a whole percent. And seeing God do incredible things in my life, not just through giving back to me. We know that's the principle from Malachi 3:10, but in opportunity, in my faith, in my confidence in my life. There's lots of immeasurables that you can't really, put onto the spreadsheet and be like, I give X and I got Y. That's not what we're communicating to church at any point. And we're trying to get something in them and grow them in their faith journey. So Dave Ramsey talking about giving helps give me confidence, but also there's so many niche scenarios that I'd never considered before. And my life stage of having one kid is very different to somebody in their 60s thinking about retirement, but I'm gaining lots of wisdom and insight on how to communicate about legacy, finances, debt, not just with people that are at my stage of life, but right across the spectrum, which I think is really helpful in pastoring people throughout lots of different stages of their life.
Yeah, I was talking with my kids this morning about money. They were counting up their pocket money, and so I was talking to them about tithing. My 9-year-old daughter gets it. My 6-year-old son has no idea. He's like, no, that's my money. But the thing from watching the Ramsey Show podcast, I think what's really struck me is I wish I knew this information earlier.
Definitely.
That is certainly something that struck me. I thought, why didn't I know this when I was 20?
Mm-hmm.
I would have not made half the mistakes that I made had I just, known these things. And in reality, it's just solid Bible-based wisdom, but with some good, solid financial principles for the 21st century, of course. So it's a great show, and I would definitely recommend it, and a great addition for this podcast, and certainly something that, put it on CPD if you're, every minister should be on CPD and should be using it. Highly recommended. Obviously, this is why we do this podcast. But you can add that on. You can add that as a podcast. Listen to those podcasts, and it counts as development. Brilliant. Okie dokie. Let's go on to resource number 3. What's your thought? What's your third one? I can't speak properly. I'm going to say that again. What's your third one?
Amazing one. Last but not least, it's a show on Netflix, would you believe? I'm recommending Netflix to the ministers out there and leaders. It's called 7 Days Out, and the episode specifically is called 11 Maddison Park.
Well, do you know what? This is a podcast first for us, which is this is the first Netflix show that has been recommended on the show. So I'm really excited. So talk to me about this. I've not seen it, but it looks like something I'm going to have to try and find some time to watch. Tell me about this episode, 11 Maddison Park by 7 Days Out.
Yeah, so we've had a book, we've had a podcast, and then if you're not into any of those things, you can throw on Netflix tonight and watch this. So it's about the best restaurant in the world in New York. They've got 3 Michelin stars. They're called 11 Maddison Park. And again, their principal value is excellence. So a lot like Excellence Wins, this is a different take on excellence in still the hospitality sector, but specifically in the restaurant. And so they talk about excellence being 1,000 details executed correctly. So a little bit like what I was chatting about before in the 1%ers. They are just ruthless with their environment. They create an amazing culture. The restaurant is that good. Where do you catch this? It's unbelievable. They have a 15,000 person waiting list for people to come and visit for dinner. The team are amazing. It's like a well-conducted orchestra in their spirit culture. So people are literally wanting to go from all across the world just to get to this restaurant. It's amazing.
Brilliant. So tell me about what they talk about in the episode. Are they showing you behind the scenes? And then what of those things have you gone, yeah, that's really helpful for putting into your own ministry life and working those things in?
So the founder is a guy called Will, and you see the whole journey of them refurbing their restaurant. So it's called 7 Days Out because in 7 days' time, come hell or high water, they're opening the restaurant doors after the refurb. So you see all of the behind the scenes, the planning, the chaos, it's literally a prophetic piece of where we're going to go as a church with this new building. Is there's going to come a date where we're moving in, and whether we're ready or not, we're moving in. And you see all these guys just pulling each other together. The level of teamwork is truly inspirational. And I think for me, it helped me realize that if people can get this excited and on board for a restaurant, which without putting them down, at the end of the day, you're having a nice dinner. That's what it is. And we get to create an experience on the Sunday where we're presenting to the world Jesus Christ, the greatest person ever to walk the planet, the greatest reason to ever give your life for. The stakes are huge in our world, and in their world, they're quite small, but they put so much effort, time, energy into the spirit and culture of the restaurant. So it made me think, well, if they've got a 15,000 person waiting list for the restaurant, why don't we have queues out the door on Sunday mornings? In fact, there's a church in the south of America in Colombia. It's called Su Presencia, which stands for, I think, the house of your presence. And every single Sunday morning, they've got queues out the door, not just for the service it's about to start, because that's already full, but for the next couple of services in advance. People are waiting hours to get into church on Sunday morning. And I don't know what it's like for you guys, but when I look across church, when it hits 11 o'clock Sunday morning, half the congregation aren't even there. They trickle in through the praise and through the worship, and you turn around 15 minutes later, and the whole church has come out to church on Sunday. And it just helps you think and articulate what we do in a different way and think about excellence through a different lens. And they're truly an organization that goes over and above for the individual, which I love. They see people with value, and not just because they get money at the end of the day, but because they really care about the person's experience. So a role they've created, which I'd love to do in the life of church. I don't think we're quite there yet, far from it. But is this role called the Dream Weaver. And it's a specific role for the shift at the restaurant on Saturday night, the Dream Weaver. And their job is to make people's dreams come true. So what does that mean? That's people putting the reservation saying, hey, it's Sally's 50th birthday. And they bake cakes in-house. They get sculptures, ice sculptures for people to celebrate special occasions. There's one couple that were sitting down for dinner, and they were saying to their friends they were with, they were leaving New York City tomorrow on a flight. And they said, oh, we're leaving New York City, but I'm gutted I haven't had the chance to eat a deep dish pizza. And so the Dreamweaver staff member who heard this went a couple of blocks down the road, got a deep dish pizza, and give it to them at the end of their meal to say, hey, you've not missed out coming to New York. So it's stuff like that that they don't have to do. Far from it. They've got 3 Michelin stars, their food's amazing, environment's class, but they're really thinking about creating these memorable experiences, which will then bring people back. They'll tell their friends. And so you boil all that down, you think about church, you think about what we do, man, it just gets you excited to create an environment where we're really giving Jesus the best marketing, giving people the best experience that we can.
Absolutely. And I think a Dreamweaver role at church. Why not? Why not? I think that'd be a great idea. Just thinking about how we can really show care and how we can show that we really think about people, and showing people it's really the love of Christ, really, and saying actually you really matter to us. And no, I think that's a great idea. I've been able to go to. I've never been to a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I have been to a one Michelin star restaurant. I've been to 2 different 1 Michelin star ones for special occasions. And
what was that like? Similar kind of experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It was it was one of those things where you really feel well looked after, and you finish, and it's expensive, obviously. And this is not me flashing the cash, worth saying that, but you get to the end of it and you think that was worth every penny. And because you don't think, gosh, that was overly priced, you feel like that was worth every penny I paid for, because you feel so well looked after. The food is obviously excellent. You get these little bits in between courses as well. And it was, both times I've been to a Michelin star restaurant, been absolutely brilliant. It's actually worth it. I would say, if you've got a special occasion, try and do that, because it will teach you so much about what excellence looks like in service. And so, to witness it for yourself if you can. And it has a different level when you go to one of those kind of restaurants, and that they are very great. So, brilliant. Okay, so that is 7 Days Out with the episode 11 Maddison Park on Netflix. 3 brilliant resources, very wide-ranging, different mediums. We've got book, we've got a podcast, and we've got a documentary as well. Lee, thank you so much for joining me today. Of course, we must not forget the white chocolate magnum, the real star of the show here, the excellence brought together on a stick. So yes, Lee, thank you for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure I will see you very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of That CPD Show. For more episodes, why not subscribe and give us a review? It really helps us out. See you next time.